Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Neil Harvey, an important member of the Alderney Bird Observatory. Neil is going to update us on the observatory, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. Neil, good to see you, and a happy new year to you.
And to you, Tony, it's always a pleasure and kicks off the year in a good fashion, doesn't it, Tony?
And before I forget, happy new year to all our viewers and participants and everybody else. So there we are. I can't believe that 10 years have gone by.
I know it seems amazing to us. I mean, there have been times when we've kicked ourselves and said, good Lord, we're still here after 10 years because, like any new organization, particularly a charity such as ours, it's never quite plain sailing. But we are here and we think we have an excellent story to tell about Alderney in the much wider world.
Right. Well, let's kick off by why are observatories necessary?
I suppose I'd go one step back thinking about this and think, well, what would a world without birds be like? And it would be a very poor place indeed if we had no swallows in the springtime, no blackbirds singing, no robins cheering us up in the garden, all of those things. And we should never take it for granted that they will always be there because there have been threats to various species. Even the local ones. I was amazed to hear that house sparrows are now an endangered species. We knew that skylarks were, and song thrushes. So, the birds that we see around us probably take for granted. They are endangered. And the primary purpose of the bird observatories, now perhaps I should just put a viewer warning in at this point, not for the squeamish. I know very little about birds myself, and at least one other members of the committee uh, helped with this organisation because we could see the unique benefits to Alderney with our fantastic migration routes here. So,
It's incredible, isn't it? When you and I were children, sparrows were two a penny. You know,
absolutely.
that they were sort of almost in the vermin class. But to
Yeah.
actually lose them in the way they've been lost is very sad.
And it seems to be, and I do stress I'm not an expert on birds. I can just about distinguish the more common species and occasionally spot something that's out of the ordinary. But fortunately, we have some really expert birders amongst our numbers who we've now sensibly formed into a technical committee to advise us on those aspects. Um, but yes, I mean one of the birds that affects Alderney that's endangered is the skylark. I think we only have about one nesting pair now, whereas once upon a time there used to be many. And it seems to be the birds, certainly in the UK and the British Isles, seems to be the birds of the open fields rather than the forests that are particularly endangered. So, what does an observatory do? Well, it's a very much a scientifically based operation. We are controlled by, at the top of the tree, the British Trust for Ornithology in the UK, then the Bird Observatory Council, and all of these organisations have a role to play in making sure that observatories are up to scratch in terms of the data they submit, because basically our main output is data. It's data on the myriad of birds that fly through Alderney, sometimes on the residents, but particularly the migrant birds. And we carry out census work. We have been doing for 10 years on the eastern end of the island because we can't cover the entire island. But the eastern end facing France, of course, is where most of the action is, certainly on the migrants. So there's a lot of census work carried out. There is ringing work, which we can talk about later. But just to give you an idea of the scale, and my birding colleagues say this is not a competition between observatories as to who can ring or spot most birds.
Of course
Uh,
it is.
but in our 10 years of blowing Alderney's trumpet, there have been around 100,000 birds have been recorded in Alderney, um, which one suspects privately between you and I is rather more than most observatories see in half a lifetime.
Mm.
So we are acknowledged nationally in the British Isles and internationally in Europe, sitting in an extremely privileged position. It's called the East Atlantic Flyway, and that covers birds traveling east-west or west-east, and in particular the north-south birds. So there is a huge amount of data recording of those birds, and sometimes extremely detailed recording of them too.
So are we at the crossroads in terms of east, west, north, south?
We are in a sense. I mean, we are, and that's really what brought me and one or two others into the observatory in the very early days. And I was a states member when it was set up. And when I talked to the people doing it, I realized that here was one of the incredible USPs, unique sales points that Alderney has.
Yeah.
We don't have any gold mines or silver mines or any great sources of wealth in itself, but our bird migration is a huge source of attraction to very many birders in the UK and beyond. The RSPB are said to have something in excess of 1 million members in the UK, uh, but there are many more than that who, like myself, are sort of casually interested and would
Mm,
perhaps go out of the way to see some different birds.
that's
So
it.
the potential for exploiting that in an economic sense is enormous. We've barely scratched the surface so far, but we are increasingly honing in on the things that will attract people from the UK and hopefully be in due course from Europe as well to see the fantastic bird life we have passing through here,
S
particularly in the spring and the autumn.
yeah.
But if you add to that the seabirds here for most of the summer or part of the summer, in the case of the puffins, it's a absolute nirvana for anybody interested in birds.
It's very interesting that in terms of coming back to this crosswords analogy or crossroads analogy, um, do quite a few of them actually land on the island?
They do, and of course we are the reason why we are so blessed, I guess, is because a lot of these, particularly the north-south, some coming from as far as South Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, come through across the Mediterranean up through France, and very many of them will take the route up northwards through Normandy, and of course, just as they're about to face the 60-mile crossing of the Channel, they see little Alderney sitting there. I'm told that they're attracted by the glint of water, which is
Mm.
one of their essentials, obviously. So we get a huge number of birds migrating north and south again in the autumn, who see Alderney as a wonderful little place to stop off, have a rest, drink, and to feed, because it's an unfortunate fact. One of the most popular places for birds here is behind the sewage farm. But that attracts the flies, which of course attracts the birds. So they're doing us a double favour there, both on putting a
So,
display for us and helping keep the insect population down just a little.
so the
So,
recommendation is to continue to discharge raw sewage.
well, yeah, we wouldn't go into that. That's for another day, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, so we are particularly blessed with our location here, and this is recognised on the worldwide migration routes. This little Alderney sitting under this hotspot is appreciated internationally.
We're going to talk about technology in a couple of moments, but you're always in a situation really where you can have a flight radar system on them. Yes.
Yes, I mean we have we're a very small organisation. I may just talk about it briefly
Yeah.
for a minute. We are an only registered not-for-profit company and a registered Guernsey charity number CH624. See it on my mind. Um, so we have and we have obviously as a new observatory we have a pretty limited means. So we only have one paid employee, which is Matt, the current bird warden, and he won't mind me saying we pay him almost a derisorily small sum because it's what we can afford. So we don't spend money lightly. And we employ technology where we can. So the
Right.
first foray into that was a system called Motus, and anybody who's been past our modest headquarters up on Essex Hill will have noticed aerials sprouting there a couple of years or so ago. Motus was a system developed in Canada for tracking birds animals, and indeed even down to insects, the tiny little tracking devices. I think they used it for moose or something, trekking across
Oh,
the
really?
waste of Canada. But it's grown and grown, and basically it involves attaching, again, on a very carefully controlled manner, one of the several types of tags to birds, electronic tags, which will eventually fall by the wayside. Some of them have a limited battery life of days or weeks. Others, for the larger birds, have a tiny solar panel which extends the life. And that will send out a unique signal. So any tracking station, and we are probably one of the most southerly, certainly the only one in the Channel Islands and the Bay of San Malo. There are many more along the east coast of the UK and the adjacent continent. So those masts will pick up. They will interrogate the tag that's flying over them, and from that data will then be provided to a central utility who will say, yes, you had such and such a bird flying through your area in this direction. So
Incredible.
as long as the tags last, that bird can be tracked without any further human sort of interference, as it were. Um, and it's in a relatively early stage, I think. You need a critical mass of more observatories using the technology.
Mm.
But it is growing, and I like to think we were sort of pretty much in at the start of this operation. It's cost us a bit in financial terms, though we're grateful for grants we've had, particularly from the Guernsey Social Investment Fund, and huge support locally from one or two people who really know about electronics, who, as ever in Alderney, have given their expertise on a voluntary basis. So that's enabled us to get the motors up and running.
So can I just
The
make
other,
a point here, Neil?
of
Um,
course,
with this with motors, the data goes to a central point, and you can then access from there. Can you? You don't actually collect it
absolutely,
yourselves.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
It's transcribed, so to speak, and using my old-fashioned pre-digital speak. It's turned into data that anybody like you and I could understand. But perhaps I should have said that all of the data we collect, whether it's from MOTIS, NOCMIG, from ringing or census work, is fed into central points and is disseminated through the expert bird world in Europe and the
Yeah.
British Isles. So it doesn't just sort of gather dust somewhere. It goes to people who are in a position to add it to all the other observatory data and say, look, we are concerned about this species. There's a problem here. We need to try and find out what's the problem. And the threats are manifold. There's global warming, obviously, with the changing climate. There is habitat, loss of habitat is a key one, particularly across North Africa, Europe. Um, and so all of these things can affect the viability and the health of,
Mm.
and again, there are health issues too. There are particular types of avian flu and things that will attack species. And those are things that we can pick up through our activities. And all of this is reported to central points.
Gotcha. Now, what is NOCMIG?
Well, NOCMIG is a breathtakingly simple device in essence because somebody somewhere realized that when birds migrate, often at night, they sing to each other, probably to keep in touch, keep their spirits up or whatever. So by using some couple of specialist microphones and some very clever software, we are able to record those songs. The data from the microphones is then downloaded to software and is translated again into usable data. So it's just another method of, without too much human intervention, of collecting information about what birds are flying over or maybe even settling briefly in Alderney at night. So it's another use of technology to spread our very thin resources over an incredible number of birds. And that will produce some useful results. Sorry, I've lost your sound. Sorry, I've lost sound.
Okay, how's that?
That's much better, Tony.
Okay.
Yes, I
Yeah,
was
my
fit. That
fault,
was
my
better.
end. Okay. We were talking about the method of netting and, whether or not there are any casualties. How does that all work?
Right. Well, I mean, netting is a very traditional way of catching birds, and there are one or two important points to be made. I did inquire of my birding colleagues who said that the number of birds that are hurt in any way through netting is absolutely infinitesimal. They won't deny it does occasionally happen. It's significantly less than a loss to birds flying into windows or being caught by cats. But I guess the main safeguard is the very, very thorough training of ringers and potential ringers before they're allowed to get anywhere near handling a bird. As you're probably aware, in certainly in the UK and in the Channel Islands, for anybody who is not qualified to handle a wild bird is illegal. Therefore, only a qualified licensed ringer is allowed to handle the birds. The qualification typically takes several years to achieve because they have to learn not only about how to handle the birds in a calm, quiet, and very sensitive manner, but also the management of the nets.
Mm,
So if there is rain or rain forecast, they will not open the nets. If the weather is adverse, they won't open the nets. When they do open them, they are required to inspect them very, very frequently. What actually happens, I'm told, is that the birds that hit the net fall into a sort of a hammock. You know, there is a trough in the nets,
okay.
and the birds will sit reasonably happily in that hammock until such time as the ringer very quietly and carefully approaches them, picks them up in a particular manner, handles them very carefully. They put them into soft bags so that they're not further distressed, and take them back to our ringing room, which happens to be down near Longy. So the whole process is extraordinarily carefully done, and
Yeah.
as I say, the ringers have to be licensed by various bodies, including I believe it's the British Trust for Ornithology. Certainly, they have to be licensed here by the Channel Islands Bird Ringing Scheme, and also by the states. So
Okay.
the process of achieving a ringing license, which is the objective of all keen birders, is is quite a protracted one, but a very careful one.
I
So
mean, presumably, Neil, it doesn't take long to actually put the ring on.
no, but it goes rather beyond putting the ring on. I
Mm,
hadn't fully realised this till I went along to a ringing session. Every bird that is handled through that process is subjected to a very detailed examination.
yeah.
So I think I can't remember the exact number, but there's something like 25 different measurements are made of every bird they handle, ranging from the apparent health of the bird, measurement of particular feathers. So it's an extremely weighing the birds, which of course is important too to see their overall health. So it's not just catching a bird, putting a ring on, and sending it on its way. It's catching the bird, it's doing all those health checks and measurements, recording them,
Mm,
obviously,
mm.
and then the ring is attached simply and painlessly, and off the bird goes on its way, wondering what the last 5 minutes was all about.
Did I dream it?
Did I dream it, indeed? But of course, what they find fascinating here is when they recatch a bird that's been ringed either here or further afield.
Mm.
And they have on occasion picked up birds that have been ringed to the far side of Europe. And, that's a real buzz for birds to find a bird. Recoveries, they call it. Meant something different to me in banking, but recoveries in the birding world is catching a bird that's already been ringed somewhere. And again, they found. I can't remember what it was now, just now, but it was a bird that had been ringed here 10 years ago. 10 years ago in Alderney, and was back in the nets and being recorded again. So, it's a very thorough, very careful process. And if any of your listeners have any concerns about it, I would suggest they contact Matt Hogg when he returns to the island after his Christmas break
Yeah.
and says, "Can I come along and observe what
See
goes
what
on?"
see what see what
Sure,
actually goes on. Yeah.
very
Well,
happy to let them see just what a careful process it is.
mm.
Um, but
Okay.
the
You've been going 10 years. Obviously, we've talked about some of the achievements. Are there any other achievements you want to mention?
Well, I might refer to our little birthday card we wrote for ourselves the other day. I like a one pager because anything beyond one page isn't usually worth reading. Well, just to take the bullet points from there, we collected detailed measurements and other data, as I mentioned, on around 100,000 birds. We identified 30 species never before recorded in Alderney.
Wow.
Now, they didn't suddenly decide, oh, let's go to Alderney. They must have been here. But at that stage, there was no sort of proper coherent system, perhaps, of recording all of these things. And when a new species is identified here, it's not just a question of one person saying, oh, there's a black-legged what's it. It goes through a special panel who double check all the information. So there is a very thorough vetting procedure to make sure this is a genuine new species recorded for Alderney. And as I say, most of them probably aren't new, but so we're quite pleased about that 30 new species. And although we're not here to talk about the insects and things, as part of an observatory's work, they very customarily sort of look at the insects that are around, particularly the moths, which form a source of food for birds. I hadn't realised that moths migrate along with birds, so they've got a in-flight food, as it were,
The buffet car.
from the moths. So that was something good. Of course, importantly, from the point of view of us non-birders, the observatory and the activities of the observatory and the wardens have brought hundreds of visitors to Alderney specifically for that. Without advertising, most people will have heard of Nature Trek, one of the biggest wildlife tour operators in the world, I'm told. And they regularly have brought several parties a year over to Alderney, who have spent very significant sums of money on accommodation, on wining and dining. And this was really the purpose of my involvement and one or two others,
Mm.
was to help our economy, and that it certainly has done. We've also delivered dozens of presentations to birding groups in the UK and locally. And
Yeah.
those have been very well received. So there are quite a number of birding groups in the UK who've had a sort of an hour's presentation about the wonderful bird life here. Um, and I cannot believe that none of them have decided we really must go and have a look at this place called Alderney, because they really are exceptional in their quality of their birds. One of the nice things that our wardens have always done is, if they have a group of ringers there and something really unusual turns up, rather than the warden taking responsibility to handle it, they will pass it to one of the qualified ringers, so they get a real buzz out of that. So those are some of the things that we've been doing over the years, but we're not resting on our laurels. There are more things to be done. One of our key projects, we think, for the coming year, which is quite innovative for us, is there's quite a demand for ringing courses. As I have said, it could take several years. The BTO, who ultimately award licenses in the UK, merely state, we will send you a list of qualified ringers who may or may not be prepared to take you under their wing. Sorry for the pun.
Yeah, no
Uh,
pun intended, I hope.
and take you through what might be 2 or 3 years of training, depending on the degree of enthusiasm. Um, Now, one of our recent arrivals to our committee in North Thames has persuaded us, without any problem at all, that we could ringing courses here,
Mm.
because the first thing we have that every would-be ringer wants is birds, birds, and lots of birds. Well, we've got those in spades.
Mm.
So our first course is lined up for the spring, and we hope to do another, if we resources permit, in the autumn. And there's been a huge flood of interest in those. And they have several advantages. They obviously grow the number of ringers in the UK if they're successful with their course. Almost certainly, particularly if they're not at the end of their training, they will probably want to do some more sessions such as this. And if, as I'm sure they will do, they enjoy Alderney, because unlike some observatories are stuck on lovely rocks miles from anywhere. So
Mm.
birding,
Yeah.
your basic subsistence, there's, pardon the expression, damn all to do there. Well, that's certainly not the case with Alderney. And, the nature trek people who've come have been amazed, I think, at the diversity of entertainment, hostelries, outside of the birding world, the archaeological and the historical things to see in Alderney. So Alderney really is such a fantastic place for any birder. And if they want to bring their wives who may be bored with them watching birds all day long, there are plenty of things for that. I'm sorry to be sexist, it might be the other way around, Tony. But
Good
you know,
luck, bleep that bit out.
so we are quite convinced that if we get the first dozen or so people over here in the spring, that quite a few of them will want to come back again.
Yeah.
And being a relatively small community of birders, they will tell all their friends about Alderney and what a brilliant time they had here, how good the staff were, because we have some very expert people to help them. We will bring probably a couple of trainers over from the UK who will pay some of their own expenses just to come here, but they will be there on hand to help with the assessment of people. So we think that running bird ringing courses here, notwithstanding getting here, which we won't dwell on today, I think is something that could be really useful for us in the future, and we really do need some source of continuing income. Um,
So
when I
you charge a fee for providing the training.
there'll be a modest fee. We,
Yeah.
we won't charge very much because they have to find there has to be accommodation, there has to
Yeah.
be a transport links, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But if we can start generating some income on a regular basis, I asked one of my colleagues a little while ago how some of these observatories seem to be so flush with funds, whereas we're struggling. I was reminded the other day the Fair Isle Observatory burnt down, and the Scottish government put up £2 million to rebuild it. Well, I don't think we're going to be getting anything like that. Um,
Don't think that's going to happen with
yeah,
the states of Alderney.
no, I don't think so. But he said, well, some of them have been going for 40 or more years. So they've
Yeah.
had legacies, which, of course, we would love to receive. And many of them have their own accommodation, which in remote places they are required to provide. But they make money out of the accommodation. Now, we have a highly developed accommodation sector here, so we're not going to make any money out of accommodation. So we have to cast around for other ways to raise funds. We have some brilliant members, but we would like more. We occasionally are able to get grants, but most of the grant bodies are looking for specific projects, which, like the Motus and the Knockmig, we've been very grateful to receive. Um, so our core funding for things like the modest salary of one person, expenses for an assistant in the migration periods, nets need replacing on a periodic basis. I'm pleased to say our ladies, and again, I'm not being sexist, but our ladies took in hand a couple of months ago to get the old nets and see if they couldn't mend them. So it was a bit like a scene down on the quay, I imagine, with fishermen. But I think they were successful in restoring some of our nets because they don't last forever. And the rings themselves too. All these things cost money. We have no core funding from anybody, so it's what we can raise as we go along. And I think
Have
the
you got
ring.
some ideas though for fundraising this year? Any special events?
Well, we have, and we've got to say the start of the first ringing courses. We really hope, and I'm desperately touching wood here, will be sustainable for the future. But we think there should be some fun things as well, Tony, as you may imagine. So 10 years is a long time to us. So we will be publishing a program of regular events. Some of them will be things that we've done before, but we will be adding our 10th anniversary logo and our tagline for the birds, such as our bird walks, which have been very popular in the past.
Hmm.
Um, Probably in the next few months, our biggest event will be a gala dinner, which I think I'm allowed to trail down at the Bray Beach on the 21st of March, which, of course, as you will know, is the vernal equinox. Seems an appropriate time to do it. So full details of that will be coming out, I think, in February. But that will be I think, a suitable celebration of our 10 years. And, we can persuade people when they've had a few glasses of wine to buy some raffle tickets. Then we'll make a little bit of money at it as well. So there will be a program coming out in the springtime of the things we're doing to celebrate our 10 years. One of the things we're very keen to do It's some sort of a joint event, and there's been some discussions with the Wildlife Trust. But a tripartite one with the Alderney Animal Welfare too would be great.
Yeah.
We haven't yet quite decided how it will be conducted, whether it will be some sort of a semi-sporting occasion. There's been talk of a race. Well, most of us are too old for that. Um, we of course have the petanque course down at Bray. And we might even persuade one of our number to make her croquet lawn available for a day of games or something. But we would like to do something with the other organisations in Alderney, which we haven't really done in the past. So that would be breaking some new ground for us, and I think would be hopefully mutually beneficial. So I think the
I'm sure
answer
it
to your
will.
question is
Yeah.
watch this space, Tony.
Okay. Now we've got the RSPB National Bird Survey coming up shortly. What's your role on that one?
Well, we haven't got terribly involved with that in the past. I think the timing is probably not good for us. Our warden is away taking a very well-earned break over the next few weeks. We did in the past, with thanks to the library, set up in there to see what might appear in the garden below the library. So I would hope we will probably be doing that again.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that what we'd really like to do is to involve people more in the general bird life. So I say our bird walks have been very popular, and they're very gentle. It usually starts at the nunnery, walks across Longy Common, where one of our people will say, "Lord, look at that," and we're all thinking, "What's he looking at? We can't see anything," or she's looking at. And then they produce the binoculars, and we suddenly realise there's much more bird life around us than we thought. And the beauty of that is that the chairman, the wonderful Helen McGregor, who lives at the end of Longy Common, is also a dab hand with the cake making. So, it starts with birds and ends with cakes, which
That
is
sounds
how we
good.
like it. I mean, I should point out that all of the directors and the committee members, everybody other than the bird warden, are totally unpaid, but we get paid in cake. So, we're quite satisfied with that arrangement. And we're happy to share the cake with anybody else who's interested in what we do.
Wasn't that a quote from a French queen?
Uh,
Let them eat
Let them
cake.
eat cake. Let them eat cake. There's no bread. Let them eat cake. Well, I
Anyway, it all
hesitate.
sounds very exciting, and it's a testament to the way that the thing works that you've only had two wardens in 10 years. You're
Yes.
doing a lot
Yeah.
better on wardens than the states are on CEOs. Had to get
Well,
that
yes.
one in, Neil. Had to get that
Yes,
one in.
yes. I mean, there are so many different stories about all of that. Wouldn't know where to begin. But yes, I mean, John Horton started the whole thing off, and he left to go to Ireland, to one of
Yeah.
the two places. He loved Alderney. And he said there were only two places I would go to. One was Cape Clear in the southern tip of Ireland, and the other one was Fair Isle, where they've presumably rebuilt the the observatory. And his dear wife said, "Well, I'm not going to the north of Scotland, most of the way to the Arctic Circle." So when the Irish Observatory came up, he felt he had no option to go. But we're delighted to have Matt Hogg. He's an
Yeah.
excellent birder, very knowledgeable. He loves ringing. We have to remind him to talk to people occasionally, but he doesn't. He does a very good job, and he's very good with the groups too. You know, when we have our sessions in somebody's garden, talking about how to make your garden better for birds, or on the bird walks themselves. He's very good, very informative. We're delighted to have him there. And during the spring and autumn, we have a variety of assistants who come over just for some expenses, and spend 8 or 10 weeks with us helping out because of the volume of birds to be
Mm,
recorded. So
mm.
it sort of works, sort of
It's all
works.
good stuff. Many congratulations for attaining 10 years. Wish you all a happy new year.
Thank you very much, Tony, and to you and to your viewers too. And a
Okay,
very
well,
happy New Year, and Tony at 12 for 2026. Good luck with it.
thank you very much, Neil. Appreciate that. Okay, well, we'll see you soon.